The sky over Kestrel turned violet when a glass storm was born. Mara Cade felt it first as a taste, sharp and metallic at the back of her throat. Then the wind picked up. Fine glittering dust swept across the flats and rang like tiny bells against her face shield. She checked the wrist gauge again. The needle trembled past the red mark. "Shutters," she yelled. Around her, the refugee village moved at once. Canvas roofs dropped. Metal ribs folded. People, humans and aliens together, ran for the shelter doors that opened like split stones in the ground. The learned children, thin amphibian kids with copper eyes, slipped on their wet feet and laughed even as their mothers dragged them faster. A round-bodied merchant from the Clatterfolk rolled her crates into a trench. A pair of stilt-legged bird people threw a tarp over the communal cistern. Everyone knew the drills. They had learned them the hard way. The wind became a scream. The air turned bright with floating shards, so many and so small that they looked like fog. The storm would strip paint, carve soft stone, and turn uncovered skin into pain. Myra slammed the last shelter door and spun the wheel. The lock thumped home. Inside the earth, the storm was a dim ringing. It sang along the pipes and rails that crossed the ceiling like vines. Refugees pressed together in small rooms and long halls. Wet boots squeaked. Someone played a quiet tune on a reed flute to calm a crying child. Someone else brewed tea in a dented pot that smelled like pepper and warm grass. Myra stood at the map board and watched the blue dots move on the screen. The dots were sensor beacons that ringed the village above and the power station below. If any went dark, it meant trouble. The storm had a way of cutting lines and blowing fuses. She learned that in her first week here. She had learned a lot in the months since. "Commander Cade," a small voice said. Mara looked down. A Zapirian girl stood by her knee. She was crystal folk, with a body like clear quartz that held shifting colors deep inside. Her name was Kylie. She was 10 years old by human measure. She loved to listen to the station turbines because the spin and hum made songs only her kind could hear. "Just Mara," she said. "What is it?" Kylie's colors were the pale blue of fear. "Pi Q is missing." "Where?" Kylie pointed at the service tunnel. Myra didn't ask more. She grabbed her hood and a bag of medical patches. The tunnel air was colder. The walls shook a little. Dust fell from the joints like fine snow. She jogged, boots echoing, following small wet footprints on the floor. She found Pi Q, a lern boy, at the far end. He had his hands pressed to a thin pipe and eyes squeezed shut. The pipe was singing. She could hear it too, faint as a mosquito. The kid loved sound like Kylie did, and he had followed the music out here. "Hey," Mara said soft. "The storm is angry today." Pi Q opened one eye. "It sounds pretty." "It does, but it is not safe." "I just wanted to hear it close," he said, shame creeping into his voice. Mara crouched. She remembered a boy like this on old Ceres Station. He had followed a sound and almost lost a hand in a lift gear. She had been a ship mechanic then, not a leader, and her hands had been steady and clean. They were not steady now. They had scars along the knuckles. She took Pi Q's hand anyway. "Next time you want to hear music, we'll make some together. Deal?" He looked at her face, at the gray in her hair at the temple, at the honest worry in her eyes. He nodded. The pipe above them squealed. The pitch jumped. The map in Mara's head lit with danger. She stood fast. There was a valve ahead and a pressure loop behind. If the loop blew, the power station could stall. If the power stalled, the air scrubbers might shut down. The storm would grind the village into glass dust while everyone suffocated underground. "Pi Q, go get Kylie. Tell her to bring her hands." The boy ran. Mara turned the valve wheel. It stuck. She leaned. Heat rose from the pipe and made her eyes tear. The wheel turned an inch, then two. The squeal dropped a note, but not enough. Kylie skidded in, shining with stress. "I came as fast." "Here," Mara stepped aside. "You feel things I don't. Tell me where it binds." Kylie pressed her palm to the pipe. Her inner light shifted, searching. "Here," she said, touching 3 points. "And here." Mara pulled a wrench from her bag. "Tap when I say." Kylie tapped in a careful rhythm. Tap, tap, pause, tap. Mara turned the wheel in time with the taps. The metal groaned, then sighed, then hummed into a stable tone like a deep bell. The map board far behind them would show blue again. The loop would hold. Kylie's body glowed gold with pride. "We did it." "We did," Mara said, "together." Something buzzed in her ear. Her battered link flashed a light. A message had slipped through the storm like a dart through cloth. She tapped the side of the earpiece to open it. Static, then a voice, faint and breaking. Sanctuary to ground, this is Convoy 9, repeat, this is 9, deep desert, coordinates attached, found a door inside the mountain, a heavy breath. It says Saul, it says all are welcome, but ambush. The link cut, the storm screamed along the pipes again. Kylie's colors went pale. What is it? Myra swallowed, her throat tasted like iron. Someone out there found an old earth door, she said. What does it mean? It means, Mara said, and her voice shook now, it means hope, and it means someone else is trying to kill it. The shelter lights flickered. In the room behind them, someone prayed in a language like water, and someone else began to cry. Mara looked at Kylie, at Pi, Q, at the pipe they had just saved, and made a decision that would change a world. When the storm ends, she said, we go to the desert. The shelter door rattled under the wind like a drum. The scream outside rose higher until it was almost music. Then, like a string cut, like a breath held too long, silence. At that same moment, far away on the desert flats, a small human convoy turned toward a black mountain with an old word carved above a sealed metal door. They did not see the gunships until it was too late. The desert after a glass storm looked like a mirror broken and then pressed smooth again by a giant hand. The ground shone. Every step crunched very softly like walking on frost. The sky was hard blue, heat rose in sheets. Myra rode in the lead crawler. The crawler was a low machine with fat balloon wheels that gripped the slippery ground. A line of other machines followed, water trucks, a med cart, and an open rig that carried solar panels and a field printer. Beside her sat Kylie, wrapped in a light-proof shawl so the sun would not blind her. Behind them, Pi, Q, and 6 other teenagers crowded around a crate of tools and excitement. The convoy moved at a careful pace. The desert was full of old war traps. Kestrel had belonged to a dozen powers in the last 100 years, and none had left gently. You're sure of the coordinates? Myra asked, not for the first time. Captain Gesso, the radio chief, answered from the rig behind them. We squeezed the message and set it against the map. The signal broke a lot, but the line points true, about 19 clicks from the Black Ridge. The Black Ridge hovered ahead like a shadow. It was a finger of stone bleached dark by ancient lava. At its end, a single mountain rose, pure basalt, smooth as a tooth. Kylie clutched the shawl. I can feel something, she said. It's bright under the ground. Power, Myra asked. Not like that, like attention, like a machine that is asleep. But when you look at it, it looks back. Mara's skin prickled. She had seen sleeping stations and old hulls and dead beacons. None had looked back. Stay ready. They climbed a shallow rise. The world opened. The mountain was closer than it seemed, and it had a door. The door was set in a smooth cut in the rock. It was tall and rounded at the top like an old church gate. The metal was dull silver. Across it, in old earth lettering that still made Myra's chest tight, someone had stenciled, Seoul Colonial Reserve, all are welcome. At the foot of the door lay 4 crawlers, open like broken toys. A thin curl of smoke rose from each. Bodies lay in the glass dust, small and still. Birds tracked circles high above. Mara did not think. She slammed her hand on the horn and drew a wide circle with her other arm. The convoy fanned out, engines snarling. The open rig swung left. The med cart peeled right. Gesso raised his rifle, eyes scanning the hills. Nothing moved. Mara jumped down and ran. Her boots crunched. She saw 3 humans and a clatterfolk merchant in the dust. She knelt. Heat rolled off the ground like a mouth exhaling. The human nearest to her had a hole in his chest clean as a laser cut. His eyes were open, but he did not see the sky. She reached without thinking and closed them. I'm sorry, she whispered as if he could hear. A small sound pulled her head around. A man lay under a crate, his arm twitched, he coughed. Not gone, he said, lips cracked. Door it opened and then they came, dark flyers with quiet guns. Stay with me, Mara said. She pressed a med patch to his neck. It went from white to green, releasing tiny machines that rushed like cold into his veins. He gasped. Color came back to his face like dawn. Who attacked? Gesso asked, crouching by her shoulder. The man swallowed. Syndicate birds, he said. Black hulls, no markings, but when the wind shifted I saw the side, a sun with a bite missing. Mara knew the emblem, Hellion Cartel, a human corporate syndicate that pretended to be a trade company and acted like a small empire. They bought people and worlds the way other people bought ships. They were the kind of humans that made aliens spit when they said human. They worked with Kestrel's prefect, Mailer, when it suited them and cut him out when it did not. "Are they still here?" Gesso asked. "Left," the man said. "With 2 prisoners. They tried the door, they couldn't open it." He coughed again and looked past Mara's shoulder. His eyes widened. "But she can." Mara turned. Kylie stood before the door, shawl fallen back, arms at her sides. Light swam under her skin like fish under clear ice. The door's dull surface had started to change. Symbols blossomed on it like frost patterns. They were not just words, but pictures of sound and heat and time. Kylie's colors answered each one like a reply. It looked like 2 singers meeting in the middle of a song. "Kylie," Mara said, careful, "don't touch it." "I won't," Kylie said, without taking her eyes off the door. "It's asking me why we came." "What did you say?" "I said we came because we were told we were welcome." The symbols paused. The door made a small sound. It was the sound of a hand knocking gently on a table. Then it slid open. Cool air flowed out, carrying a smell like rain in tin. Lights came on in the floor and grew brighter one by one, like a path lit by fireflies. Behind them, a whisper rolled over the desert. "Engines." Mara spun. From behind the black ridge rose 3 gunships, black and low. They angled down, gun tubes unfolding like teeth. "Inside," Mara shouted. "Everybody move." The convoy leaped. Gesso fired a burst that made sparks jump from the lead gunship's nose. It banked, angry. The second ship dropped a flare that made the world white, then gray. Shapes moved in the haze. The med cart skidded. Someone screamed. Kylie stood frozen by the open door, caught between fear and awe, that human hurting, alien lifting welcome in her ears, and the howl of human-made guns beyond. Mara reached her. She pulled hard. "Now." Kylie tripped. They fell together inside, rolled, got up. Mara slammed her palm against the inner panel. The door whispered shut, slicing the noise outside like a knife cuts a cry. A soft voice spoke in very old Earth English. "Visitor record, human, Zapirian minor. Welcome to Sol Colonial Reserve Kestrel node. This node is glad to serve." Kylie stared, tears in her eyes that looked like small prisms. "It knows us." Mara leaned her forehead against the cool wall for 1 second. She wanted to laugh and cry at the same time. Then she straightened. "Jess." His voice came from the other side of the door, small and tinny through the panel. "We're under the lip of the ridge," he said. "The ships are circling. They have rockets. We can't outrun them and we can't hide long. What do you have in there?" Myra looked at the dim hall ahead. It curved gently left and right as if the mountain were hollow and full of sleeping things. Lights came on a little brighter each second. She didn't know what was here. She didn't know what it could do, but she knew the door's words, "All are welcome." She had always wanted to believe them. "Kylie," she said, "can you ask the node a question?" Kylie nodded, suddenly brave. "Ask it," Mara said, feeling the old engineer in her wake and lift, "if it remembers how to protect its guests." The wall warmed under Kylie's hand. The air hummed. The floor lights flickered, then steadied, then glowed like a pool under moonlight. Somewhere in the mountain, a very deep machine drew its first breath in 100 years. Outside, black gunships lined up for a perfect kill. Inside, the mountain woke. The mountain's heart opened like an eye. Myra and Kylie stood in a round hall with a ceiling that looked like a star map. Points of light burned above them, moving slowly as if time flowed in the stone. The wall opposite the door rippled. A shape pushed through. It was a drone, old and round, with 3 legs and a body like a polished pot. Dust fell from it like flour. It wobbled, then stabilized, and its single camera lens turned toward them. "Maintenance Unit Theta," the soft voice said. "Operational with reduced capacity. Welcome guests, please state your needs." "Defense," Myra said. "Outsider hostiles, human hostiles." The drone rotated 19 degrees and tilted its lens as if in disbelief. "Humans." "Yes," Mara said. "They work for a cartel. They want to take whoever is inside and whatever is in here." "This node is a Sol charitable reserve," the voice said, with a gentle steel under the words. "It is not for conquest, it is for refuge." "Then we are home," Myra said. The drone emitted a sound like a laugh. "Defense protocols require authorization by an adult human with traceable Sol ID." "That's me," Mara said. She pulled her old Series station badge from her belt. The plastic was cracked. The chip inside still held her ID, the one that let her pass gates and check out Torque drivers. She pressed it to the panel. The hall lights deepened. The badge flashed green. The voice softened further. Welcome, Mara Cade, Series Station Engineering, retired. You are authorized to request defense protocols under Refuge Clause 9. What does that do? Kylie whispered, color flickering. Clause 9 lets a station defend itself to protect guests who seek shelter, Mara said. Her voice was steady. Inside, she shook. Within limits, non-lethal first. Non-lethal response prepared, the node said. Warning distribution, field deployment, and area lighting in 3, 2. The mountains sang. Outside, the gunships dropped into attack passes. Bright cones bloomed under their noses, the first rockets. The desert lit in lemon flares. The mountain's black face pulsed. A wave of sound rolled out flat as a wall. It hit the rockets. The rockets wobbled, turned, and popped like soap bubbles. The gunship pilots swore, their control boards filled with sliding numbers that would not hold still. The mountain sang again, this time high like wire. Glass dust lifted in sheets and formed a cloud between the ships and the ground. The cloud reflected the sun. The pilots saw only white. Non-lethal deterrence successful, the node said. Jesso's voice crackled. Whatever you did, they're blind, we can move. Go, Mara said. Get to the door, fast. Boots pounded, wheels squeaked. Kylie touched the wall. There are people under the ground near the old quarry, she said. The node can feel their heat. They are tied. The prisoners, the two taken from Convoy 9, Hellion was cautious. They used bait and hostages at once. Mara's jaw clenched. She looked at the map that unfolded in the air. Blue lines spidered through the mountain. A narrow tunnel reached toward the quarry like a finger. We're going to get them, she said. The door hissed open. Jesso tumbled in with a dozen others. His face was gray with adrenaline. He looked at the drone. He looked at the star map. He looked at Mara with a respect that hurt. Is this real? He asked. Yes, Mara said, and it's ours. The mountain guided them. They moved through halls that smelled like clean metal and old rain. They slid down ladders and crawled through a short tunnel that opened in a shadow under a fallen plate of rock. Through cracks in the stone, Mara saw the quarry. Two figures knelt at the base of a broken tower. Black-helmeted guards stood with weapons that hummed like angry bees. A gunship idled on the far ridge, its shadow long. 4 guards, Jesso whispered. 2 more by the ship, maybe one inside. Mara counted heartbeats. She searched the ground for paths and traps. She saw a strip of shade that led almost to the tower. She saw a pile of glass sand that would slide if anyone stepped wrong. She saw the prisoners. One was human, hair matted with blood. The other was a thin alien with skin like smoke and ears like leaves. Both had hands bound behind their backs. Both flinched when the guards laughed. Kylie touched Mara's sleeve. Her light had gone a deep, heavy blue. I can sing the alarms, she said. How? Jesso asked. This place is a singer. I can touch that song. Mara looked at Kylie for 3 long seconds. She saw a child and a musician and a person who had watched the world reject her people and who still believed in a door with welcome on it. Do it. Kylie pressed her palms together and opened them. Light pooled there like water. She whispered a tune. It was high and thin. It slid under the noise of the gunship and the chatter of the guards. It found the mountains sleeping wires and old thin plates. They trembled. They chimed. The sound ran across the quarry like mice in dry grass. The alarms woke. Sirens wailed from 6 different directions, uneven and loud. A red lamp spun near the tower. Another sputtered and died. A bright banner shot from a crack in the ground and snapped itself open. On it, in a dozen languages, 3 words, all are welcome. The guards jerked. One fired at the banner. Another yelled and pulled his helmet off to hear better. Jesso and 2 others moved like shadows. They slid along the cool strip of shade, reached the tower base. A short fight. A grunt, a cough, a weapon stripped. The human prisoner looked up with eyes that were all white and said, You're not Hellion. No, Jesso said, teeth showing. We're human. In the same moment, the gunship pivoted. Its pilot had fixed the noise problem long enough to see targets again. It dropped. Its belly doors opened. Rockets gleamed. The mountain sang a 3rd time. The glass dust rose in a sheet and stiffened. A clear wall grew between the ship and the ground. The rockets hit the wall and pushed. The wall bent. It shook like a drum. It held. The pilot yelled and pulled up too fast. The gunship's rear rotors bit bad air. It twisted. It fell slow and ugly into the far slope. The crash thudded up through the stone into Mara's bones. Silence fell like cloth. They cut the prisoners free. The human was a courier who had carried a code key for the reserve network. The alien was an archivist from the old city. He touched the All Are Welcome banner with a gentle hand. "This is an old sign," he said, voice cool and precise. "Before cities fell, these words meant safety. They were posted at water stations and after storms. People fought over the right to put them up. People died for them. You are brave to raise it." "We didn't raise it," Mara said. "Kestrel did." More engine noises reached them, not Hellion, other notes, other engines. Mara felt ice in her stomach. The mountain hummed in warning. It showed a picture on the air. A wedge of white ships slid over the desert. Their wings were thin. Their noses were clever. They flew like they owned the air. "Prefect Mailer," Gesso spat. "Centauri client wing." Mara tasted metal again. The prefect liked to let the syndicate fight first, then sweep in and talk about order after he broke anyone who resisted. He would bring cameras. He would say the word illegal a lot. He would hold the All Are Welcome sign up to the light and tell the galaxy it meant terrorist. Kylie whispered, "He will say humans are a disease." Myra closed her eyes for a heartbeat. She saw the refugee hall. She saw Pi cue with his palm on the singing pipe. She saw a dead man's eyes and a mountain waking to promise. She opened her eyes. "Then we show him what a cure looks like." "How?" Gesso asked. "We invite the whole world inside," Myra said and turned to the mountain's lens. "Node, we need to broadcast." "Broadcast what message?" the node asked. Myra looked at the welcome words in 12 scripts on the banner that hung lopsided still. She smiled, but it hurt. "The truth." The mountain's lights brightened like the breath before a song. "Broadcast channels found." At the same moment, a new voice spilled through every radio on Kestrel. Smooth, heavy with practice and arrogance, Prefect Mailer. "Citizens," he said, "remain calm. Illegal human agitators have activated a forbidden war node in the Black Ridge. For your safety, stay away. Refugees in the complex must exit now to be processed. Those who resist will be treated as criminals." The node whispered, almost shy, "You may speak now, Mara Cade." Mara took a slow breath. She had never wanted to be the voice. She wanted to fix pipes and hold hands, but the world had a way. She spoke. "Kestrel, this is Mara Cade. I'm a mechanic. I'm a refugee. I am human. I am with a Zapirian child named Kylie and a dozen others inside an old Sol reserve under the Black Ridge. The words on the door say all are welcome." The door opened to those words. This place is not a weapon. It is a home. It woke to protect its guests without killing. "If you're scared, come. All are welcome. If you are Hellion, leave now. If you are Prefect Mailer." Her throat closed on his name. She forced it open. "If you are Prefect Mailer, please hear me. You say we are illegal. You say refugees are a disease. I say we are your people. We work. We sing. We fix the machines that keep you alive. We raised your children when you went off in your clean suits. You sell fear. We offer shelter. All are welcome." The message went out like a seed on the wind. On a farm far away, a woman with 6 arms stopped her harvest and looked up, eyes wet. In a city of plates stacked like bowls, workers raised their heads in the greasy light of a factory and smiled with their mouths closed so cameras would not see. In the prefect's own media tower, a young editor with a hidden scar hit record and smiled openly. In the air above the mountain, white ships spread like a fan. Their cameras winked. Their guns shone. Their leader's voice cut through the node's gentle broadcast. "Mara Cade, you are under arrest for activating a military site, incitement, and theft of state assets. Surrender, or we will seize the node and all inside by force." The mountain's star map pulsed like a heartbeat seen through skin. Kylie leaned close to the wall. "It is afraid," she said softly. "It remembers old wars. It does not want to be that again." "Then let's show it a new kind of war," Myra said. "One where we hold without hate." On the hill above the quarry, something moved. A line of figures crested the slope. Their bodies were silver and thin, with long arms and heads like glass teardrops. They carried no guns. They held long poles hung with banners, the old welcome sign, red on white, white on blue, yellow on black. A choir of clatterfolk rolled beside them, their metal skins ringing small. Learned kids clambered on their backs. Humans walked with them, tired and stubborn. Gesso choked. "They came." "They heard," Kylie said, and her light went bright gold. The white ships angled down. Their guns flicked safety covers off. The leader's voice sharpened into a knife. "Last warning," he said. Myra took one step out from under the rock to where the sun fell hard on her face. She lifted her hands so the cameras could see she carried no weapon. "All are welcome," she said again, to the world and to the guns. The white ships fired. The first volley should have cut people in half. It should have burned banners and silenced voices. Instead, it turned to rain. Light fell like water. It caught on banners and ran down the poles. It slid along the silver skins of the choir and made them sing, made them laugh. It washed across Myra's face as cool as shade. What? Gesso began. The node diverted energy, Kylie whispered, awed. It bent the beams into a shower. Non-lethal, the node said, almost pleased. Clause 9. The leader of the white ship swore. He signaled a second volley, heavier. The beams struck the invisible wall, bent again, and spilled as gentle light across the ground. Refugees raised their hands and let it run over their fingers. Some cried openly now, tears lit from within. Prefect Mailer's voice cut in. It was a growl behind a smile. Clever, he said, but this cannot last. Your power reserves are finite. He was right. The star map above Myra was dimming a little at the edges. The old grid was strong, but not infinite. The mountain had slept for a century with only the smallest heartbeat of current. Waking it for war, new kind or old, cost. Node, Myra said, fast and firm. Can you link to other reserves, other doors? Not without keys, the node said. Safeties exist. The human prisoner, the courier, staggered forward. He held his side where a patch glowed green. Keys, he said. He dug into the seam of his boot with a shaking finger and pulled out a thin flex coin. He slapped it to the wall. Hearth Network. If this is truly a node, it can handshake with all local reserves and city shelters built before the fall. The wall drank the coin. The star map pulsed bright, then brighter. Lines like rivers of light ran out from the mountain in every direction, following old buried conduits and forgotten city veins. All are welcome, the node said, louder now, like someone deciding to sing on a stage. Hearth handshake complete, 82 shelters online, 49 accept active defense link, 27 accept passive power draw, redirecting. The white ships fired again, the wall thickened. The rain that fell was thicker too, soft as silk on skin. The refugees cheered. A small clatter child stuck his round face into a falling sheet and blew it. It bowed like a curtain. Mailer laughed through his teeth. You've made a circus. Myra felt herself smile, not with joy but with a hard kind of love. If a circus keeps children alive, she said to his invisible camera, then I will build tents to the sky. His voice dropped. Very moving. Tell me, Mara Cade, is it moving when I show your human face next to the dead human body from Convoy 9? Is it moving when I tell the planet you killed him and put children in front of guns to hide? Is it moving when I remind them the words, all are welcome, were stolen from their own mouths by Earth colonizers who came promising gifts and left with ore and blood? He was good. He knew how to twist a knife without making his hands shake. He turned refugees into a weapon. He turned a welcome into a brand. He turned old pain into a chain. Myra leaned closer to the wall and spoke low, for the node and Kylie and anyone who still had their radio turned all the way up. He wants a fight that looks like the one he knows. He wants a riot. He wants us to run or strike so he can call us names that make him feel safe. What do we do? Gesso asked, voice tight. We do what we do best, Myra said. We fix, we help, we hold. Hold what? The courier asked. Hold this place open while we go get proof. Proof of what? Kylie asked. That the prefect and Hellion planned this together, Mara said. That they want this door not to protect people but to sell it. How do we find proof? Gesso said. Myra looked at the courier. Where is the feed hub? Not the towers, the real one, the place Hellion built into the bones of the city. The courier closed his eyes. He had carried maps for years, not written but folded into the way he moved and looked at alleys. Under the old heat exchange, he said. The one by the dry river, there's a sump and a ladder. If you go down 3 levels, you find a door with no handle that smells like new plastic. That's where they scrub news. Let's go, Myra said. Gesso stared. Now. Now, Myra said. Before Mailer frames us for anything more, before he points a big gun we can't bend. You can't walk out there, Gesso said. The white ships. We go under, Myra said and looked at the node's lens. Do you have old city maps? I am the old city, the node said, and the floor lit under her boots in a line like a road of stars. They moved. Kylie stayed because the door needed a singer and the mountain needed a friend. The archivist stayed to record. The courier came, stubborn, because he had almost died for a coin and wanted to live long enough to see it used. They slipped into the mountain's veins. They crawled through pipes where the glass dust sang softly along their shoulders. They dropped into pits and felt cool air touch their faces like hands. They climbed a ladder that went so high their muscles shook at the top. They came up in a culvert near the dry river. It stank like old heat and old water. The sun beat down in a square. The city by the river had been grand once. Its buildings were pale stone and black glass. Now both were cracked, sunburnt. Shreds of bright banners clung to poles where the wind could get them. They moved in shadow. Gesso scanned corners, Mara counted steps, the courier led. They found the sump at the mouth of a tunnel where the street ended. It was a hole full of gray water. A ladder went down into darkness. The smell of new plastic floated up from it like a lie. The ladder was old. It flaked. It squealed. Far above, white ships floated and refugees sang. Far below, Prefect Mailer's media center hummed like a heart in a cage. They reached the door. It was plain, which is what made it stand out. The city had builders who loved swirls and stone flowers. This door was square and smooth and gray. It had no handle. "Let me," Mara said. She pressed her ear to it. Machines have breath. They have a way of saying, "I'm alive," even when they don't speak. This one breathed steady and slow. She spread glue on the seam, then dust, then bent close again. When the glue dried, it turned a different color where warmth leaked. The leak drew a line. She found the lock. The courier handed her a spool of silk-thin wire. Her hands, the same hands that shook sometimes when she tried to drink, were steady now. She pushed wire into the lock in 2 places and listened with her skin. Click, click. The door sighed and opened 3 fingers' width. "Hold," a cool voice said. Myra went still. A tall shadow cut the light. The person who owned the shadow held a gun. It was not Centauri make. It was Hellion. Its front end hummed. Its back end smelled like hot oil. The woman who held it wore black with a sun-sliced badge low on her belt. "Hellion," Gesso breathed. "Inside the city, under the prefect's nose." The woman smiled without humor. "Ask me where his nose ends and our hand begins." "Where?" Mara said, keeping her voice even. "Here," the woman said. Mara kept her eyes on the gun. "We're not here to fight." The woman tilted her head. "No, you're here to steal something you think will embarrass a politician. You want proof. You want clean lines with names on them and numbers next to names. You want to hold paper up and say, 'See,' and watch a world suddenly behave. Very sweet." "We're here to show people what they already know," Mara said. "They know the prefect lies. They need a simple picture to make brave choices." "Bravery is expensive," the woman said. She gestured with the gun. "Inside." The room beyond was white and soft. Sound was hushed in it. Banks of screens covered one wall. The other walls held racks of small boxes linked by cords. In the corner, a pretty fountain bubbled. It was half joke, half cruel. "Who are you?" Gesso asked. "Vera," the woman said. "Hellion media specialist contract. I clean, I clip, I rewind. I take your all are welcome, and I add footage of riots from 20 years ago and a crying child from a storm last cycle, and I say you did it. I show it enough and someone will believe me. That is how worlds work." "Why tell us?" the courier asked. "Because I am bored," she said. "Because I like you. Because I watched you bend the beams into rain, and my heart did a thing I thought it was too small to do. Sit." They stood. Vera reached into a drawer and took out a chip. "This is what you want," she said. "Signed by Mailer and by a Hellion factor with a silver hand. It orders a black squad to shadow all convoys to the ridge. If any open the door, the squad is to take control and hold until Hellion transport arrives. In return, Hellion erases 3 years of debt records for the prefect's brother-in-law and also gives Mailer a slice of 5% of whatever's inside." Gesso swore. The courier swore longer. Mara did not swear. She said, quiet and hard, "Why give it to us?" Vera put the chip in Mara's palm and closed the mechanic's scarred fingers over it. "Because I'm tired of cleaning a lie. Because I want to see what a truth looks like when it hits a wall." She smiled like someone standing under a storm they hope will break them and wash them clean. "Go." They went. They climbed the squealing ladder. They ran through shadow back to the culvert. Above them, the rain of light had thinned. The refugees still sang, but their voices were hoarse. At the mouth of the culvert, Myra saw the sky. It was darker, a line of cloud like a bruise lay on the horizon. No, not cloud, a ship, big, a slow shape with a spinal gun like a finger pointing down. It was not Centauri. It was not Hellion. It was worse. "Mailer called a favor," Gesso said, voice flat. "He asked the Union for a cruiser." The spinal gun charged. It glowed faint and angry, like a coal. The mountain could bend beams and sing rockets into water. It could not hold a planet killer if the gun walked all the way up its long charge and finally spoke. "Run," Mara said. "Run now." They ran for the door in the mountain, with truth in a chip and death growing like a sunrise behind them. They reached the door with lungs on fire and legs that felt like wires pulled too tight. The mountain recognized them with a sigh. Cool air wrapped hands around their hot faces. Inside, the star map flickered, then brightened when it tasted the chip and the coin together. "Broadcast ready," the node said. "Not yet," Mara said. "First we make sure anyone who hears will live long enough to keep hearing." "The spinal gun," Kylie whispered. Her light was pale with exhaustion. "It is very big." "We need a shield," Mara said. "Bigger than beams, bigger than the rain." "What kind?" Gesso asked, as if she could say a word and the mountain would grow it. "Layers," Mara said, thinking with the part of her mind that measured threads and angles. "Like a river thick with ice. Nothing that has to hold one thing forever. Things that bend and move and share." The archivist stepped forward. He held out a small box. "The city has a choir," he said. "What does that mean?" the courier asked. "In times before," the archivist said, voice calm in a way that made Mara want to cry, "we sang the city. Our voices made the lamps brighter and the water sweeter. Not magic, attention. Thousands listening at once. The system listened back." Mara looked at Kylie. "You can sing machines." Kylie nodded. "If they want to be sung." "Does this mountain want it?" "It woke to protect," Kylie said. "It wants to be part of us." Mara stood straight. "Then we call everyone. We ask them to help build a shield made of machines and people and trust." Gesso laughed once, sharp. "You're going to stop a spinal gun with a song." "With a choir," Mara said, "and mirrors." "What mirrors?" he asked. "Those," she said, and pointed up at the ceiling where the star map showed long lines of crystal in the hills around the ridge. "The glass forests, we can tilt them. We can make them scatter the beam." "The glass is brittle," the archivist warned. "It will break." "Then it breaks," Mara said. "And as it breaks, it spreads the load. And behind the glass we put the rain. And behind the rain we put the old station shields that the luminari power with their bodies. And behind those we put the mountain itself lowered into deep ground and wrapped in the old city's bones." She lifted her voice, steady now, and spoke to the node. "Open every channel. Show everyone what you see." The mountain obeyed. Cameras bloomed like flowers across the ridge. Every screen in the city with a crack of life in it lit. The prefect's face vanished mid-sentence in kitchens and in guard rooms. His words cut hard to a picture of a mechanic with gray in her hair and a crystal child at her side and a star map above their heads. "This is Mara Cade," she said. "This is Kylie. This is a mountain that says all are welcome and a government that says only those who pay. A big gun is pointed at us that does not care if you are human or Zapirian or Centauri or the last child of a river people. It only wants to prove it is bigger than our hands. It will fire in." She looked at the counting light in the corner of the star map and felt a cold hand grip her throat. 6 minutes. In the prefect's tower, Vera switched the feed to full and did not look at Mailer when he shouted. On a farm with 6 armed workers, the foreman wiped her hands and began to clap in a slow, heavy rhythm. On a clatterfolk caravan, they beat their own bellies with joy that tasted like fear. In the old city, thin bird people opened their bright feathers and shook until the tips whistled. "We are going to build a shield," Mara said. "We need mirrors, we need singers, we need children who can carry water and old men who can thread wires. We need the fearful and the brave, we need you. If you have a radio, turn to the mountain and listen to Kylie. Copy her notes. If you live near the glass, tilt it. If you have a luminari friend, ask if they will help. We will not force, we will ask." She looked into the camera and let them see the shaking in her hands. "I am human," she said. "I am sorry for the ones like me who sold you. I am proud to be like the ones who saved you. I think we can be more together than we can alone. I think we can rise. All are welcome." Kylie stepped forward. Her light went clear and wide. She sang. It began as a thin tone that made old lights tremble in tin kitchens and made fine dust lift on windowsills. Then it grew. Zapirians joined in first because the song was light for them and language at once. Learned children added a low, watery thrum. Clatterfolk rolled a counter rhythm. Humans sang like they were not sure their voices belonged, and then their voices belonged. The mountain sang back. It took the notes and passed them through wires, through old glass tubes and big copper coils. It synchronized them with luminari pulses that were not quite like voices but close enough. It taught the old station shields, barely remembered under grocery stores and in school basements, to hum again. On the ridge, teams ran. They shoved long poles under the glass sheets that grew from the ground like frozen waves in pride. The sheets tilted and clicked and flashed sun into the sky like messages. Birdfolk fanned them with feathers. Clatterfolk pushed with strong, round bodies. Human women with grease to their elbows hammered wedges under stones. A luminary, bright as a summer day, slid into a hub and shook a grid awake. In the mountain, a small circle formed in the floor and rose. It was a ring full of slow-moving light. The archivist touched it and a city plan projected. Mara pointed. Angle these to 72, these to 60, pull power from here and here, leave the hospital full. The archivist nodded as if he had waited his whole life to do work that meant something and did not just move numbers on a glass. Yes. The spinal gun counted down. 5 minutes, 4. Kylie's voice climbed. Refugees climbed with it. The choir became a net. In the prefect's tower, Mailer watched, sweating under his spray tan. Fire now, he snapped at the Union captain. The captain, far above, listened to orders from a desk 100 light-years away where a general in a room full of maps decided how dangerous compassion was today and whether to shoot it. 3 minutes, 2. He's going to fire, Gesso said, watching the light swell through a narrow slot. Then we'll meet him, Myra said and touched the wall. Node ready. Ready, the node said, and did not sound afraid anymore. The Union captain gave the order. The spinal gun spoke in a voice that had killed rivers. The beam came down like a pillar. It hit the glass first. The glass shattered in a scream that ran down the hill and into people's feet. But as it broke, it spread. The beam widened a little, lost teeth. It struck the rain and bled more. It hit station shields that flared with luminaries' fierce, willing light. The shields buckled, fell, were replaced by another layer. It hit the mountain's face, which flexed and sang and burned at the edges. The beam dimmed. Only a little, but enough. The Union captain swore in a language like grinding stone. Again, he said. Power levels, his tech asked. Enough for one more shot. They charged, they fired. The beam crashed. It ate more glass, more rain. It pushed a shield into failure and made a luminary cry out with a sound like a bell thrown into a lake. It found a thin place in the mountain and pushed a shaft down it. The floor shook. A wall cracked. Kylie staggered. The ring of light that held the map flickered. The beam dimmed again. The child did not fall. The mountain did not break. The captain stared. We can't do it without stripping the guns for our escorts, his tech said. We'll be naked. The Union captain looked down at a picture that told him a human mechanic had stopped a warship with a city. He looked at numbers that said if he fired again, he would break his orders and go home in disgrace. He looked at a note in his message queue that said Hellion Factor with a silver hand. Make it loud. He made a small human choice. He said, cease fire. Mailer turned purple. You spineless. The captain muted him. On the ridge, people fell to their knees, not from religion. From relief so sudden it made their bones soft. Clatterfolk rolled in happy circles. Luminary dimmed in gratitude like the last light before sleep. Kylie slumped. Mara caught her. You did it, Kylie whispered. We did it. Mara pressed her forehead to Kylie's cool shoulder. We held. Gesso wept and did not hide it. What now? Now, Mara said and stood and turned to the lens. We tell the truth. She slid Vera's chip into the ring. The mountain tasted it, confirmed it, and pushed it to every screen. Signatures hung in the air like ghosts with names. Money lines flowed. A silver hand pressed to an agreement, Mailer's name under it. In kitchens and in guard rooms and in a prefect's tower, people watched ink become chain, become anger, become choice. Somewhere, a young editor let the chip copy into 4 different private servers, each in a different part of the city. Somewhere else, a Hellion junior specialist named Vera sat back, pulled her badge off, and set it gently on her desk like a coin she decided not to use again. The prefect's voice returned, high and ugly. Fake, he said, deep-faked with off-world tech, illegal evidence staffed by. Vera Rell, the mountain said calmly, Hellion media specialist attached to Kestrel node, statement appended. Vera's face appeared, tired and smirking. Hi, boss, she said. You forgot to pay me. In the sky, the Union captain turned his fleet on a long curve that took them toward clouds and away from the mountain. The world held its breath. Then the first chant rose in the city. not in the refugee quarter, but in a clean plaza outside a memorial that had a list of names and a fountain. It went like this. All are welcome, all are welcome. It spread. Mailer shouted orders. His private guard moved, then stopped, because the captain of that guard had a brother who had married a learn and they had a child with copper eyes, and today Gar was 8 and had begged to go to the ridge to sing. The mountain opened its doors. People began to descend the long halls, not to hide, but to stand in a circle around the map with their hands joined. Shapes and colors and voices. Myra let herself sit for 1 minute. She had not eaten since dawn. She had not slept since the storm began. She put her head back and saw the star map still slowly move, like a heartbeat that would not give up. The floor under her vibrated. This time it was not guns, it was feet, so many feet. The world was moving. Victory was a cup with a crack. It held hope, then leaked fear through the thin places. Mailer still had knives. He had money and men and a small, dirty bomb. He sent a message to Hellion. If I fall, you fall, he wrote. If I burn something you love. The Hellion factor with the silver hand set his jaw and sent back a single dot. He liked clean endings. He would help the prefect make one. Mailer moved fast. He sent 4 trucks in different directions. 3 were decoys. 1 held the bomb. It was a dull green cylinder in a crate labeled machine parts. It had numbers that lied. It had an old atom inside that wanted very badly to run. He aimed it at the refugee quarter. Vera's message to the mountain was not her last small act. She sent another to a person she had not spoken to in 2 years. Click, she wrote. You once said you could hear bad plans walk. Listen now. Click without Hive, a Hive-touched strategist who had been exiled for asking who gets to be loud and who has to be quiet, tilted her head and did exactly that. She heard the truck that did not try to look like anything. She heard the bomb's numbers pretend to be harmless and fail to be perfect. She heard the way a driver did not cough when he usually coughed. She sent a note to Mara. Knife with no handle. If we try to move it, we cut ourselves. If we do nothing, it cuts everyone. Mara's skin prickled again, not from the storm this time, but from the sense that something loved was in danger. Where? She asked. Click sent coordinates. We need a box that eats knives. An absorber, Gesso said. A magnetic coffin. Can we build one? Myra asked the node. If the Luminari help, the node said. They will, Kylie said, calm as if she had always known they would. They built it in the street. It looked like a coffin and a crib. It had thick walls of layered metal and resin, and a core wound with coils that glowed faintly when a Luminari slid into place at each corner and pulsed a safety hum. It had handles that were really hinges, and a lid that had no latch because it did not need one. If you put the knife inside, the box would want to be closed. The truck turned a corner. Refugees lined the walls and pretended to sell bread and glass beads and yellow fruit. When the truck passed, they stepped out, slow and polite, like people crossing at a city door. The driver slowed without thinking because humans break for humans even when they are cruel. Gesso jumped on the running board. The driver looked left. Myra opened the door and looked right. He saw her face wide open and tired and stubborn. He made a choice. He hit the gas. Click had planned for that. She had 6 others push against the truck from the back with gloved hands and long poles under the bumper. The wheels spun. The motor screamed. The truck did not move. The driver tried to draw a gun and Click's hand was already on his wrist, gentle as a teacher, firm as winter. She took the gun and put it on the ground and stepped on it. It made a small, sad noise as it bent. They opened the crate as if they were opening a sleeping child's door. Inside, the dull green cylinder hummed like a hive far away. Myra felt her hair rise. They lifted the cylinder. It was heavier than it looked. They put it in the box. The Luminari sang. The lid fell shut with a sound like a sigh of relief. Take it to the river, Myra said. There's a deep, folded pool bent around old iron where the mountain's ground is thick. We lower it with rope and love. They did. The water took the coffin and curled it like a hand. The Luminari hummed until the glow faded to safe. The river whispered thanks. The box sat still. The world breathed. Mailer watched on 6 screens. He did not shout. He did not break anything. He went very quiet. Pull the guard back, he told his second. Seal the gates, find the mechanic and the crystal child and bring them to me. A small door opened in a wall in the mountain. Kylie turned her head to look, like an animal hearing a distant paw on stone. Someone is inside who should not be, she said. Vera stepped out of the door. She held her hands up. She held her head high. He will take them, she said. He has loyal ones left with little thoughts like teeth. He wants to make a picture with ropes and bruises. He wants one last story, human and alien break city. Can you stop them? Gesso asked. Yes, Vera said, and smiled with all her endings showing. If you let me make a different picture. What picture? Mara asked. A surrender that looks like a choice, Vera said, and a trap that looks like a door. She told them fast. She had been a cleaner. She knew what people saw when they were afraid. She knew how to put just enough color and sound in a frame that you could pull eyes where you needed them. They set the stage in the old plaza with the memorial and fountain. The memorial names were 100 years old. They had lived for a city that promised a better tomorrow. At their feet, the new city gathered to try again. Vera stood in the center of the plaza and spoke into a mic. Prefect Mailer, she said, voice cool and smooth and amplified to roofs and alleys. Come, take your prisoners in front of everyone. Show us your truth. He came because he could not help it. A man who lived for cameras would crawl into a fire for a lens. He brought 20 guards in white. They shone. They carried batons and small riot pistols that fired sticky stun nets. They formed a ring around the fountain and aimed the nets at the crowd. The crowd did not move, which is one way to be braver than anyone has a right to expect. Myra walked into the circle. Kylie walked beside her. The guards lifted their guns. Gesso walked with them. Click rolled her wrists. The luminary brightened a little and then dimmed to polite. Mailer smiled. His teeth were perfect. You should have run, he said. We did that for 3 months, Myra said. It gets old. You stand in front of my laws, he said. You stand under our sky, Mara said. We both have choices. He raised his hand. The guards tightened their ring. Vera, who had been silent, raised her own hand. The screens on the buildings around the plaza lit. The mountain lent power and angle and grace. The cameras showed the whole square, then tight on Mailer's hand, his ring heavy with Hellion's off-world gold. They showed the little tremor in his thumb. They showed his eyes, which were tired, and his mouth, which was tired of being kind. Do it, he said. The guards fired. Stun nets flew at Mara and Kylie. They opened like flowers midair. People cried out. 100 hearts clenched. The nets fell short. They fell because 100 hands had thrown 100 old books and pots and heavy boots. A beat too late and a foot too far, not to hit anyone, but to confuse the nets' tiny eyes. The nets bloomed early and dropped like sad laundry in the fountain. Mailer stared. Click moved. She did not break the ring. She stepped into it. She did not punch a guard. She took his baton away and drew a circle on the ground with it. This is your rule, she said to the living, not to the law. It ends here. Myra took the mic. She spoke to the city, to the world, to the Saul door. You can arrest me, she said, but you cannot arrest a song. You can hold Kylie, but you cannot hold the light in her. You can make me bleed in a room with no cameras and then show the city a still and call it order, but I think the city is done with that trick. The guards looked at each other with small, human questions in their small, human chests. One lowered his net gun by a hair, then another, then 3 at once because courage, like fear, is a thing that multiplies. Mailer realized he had lost the story. He reached for his gun. Vera's hands moved. She had been a cleaner. She was also a shot. She fired first. It was a non-lethal round with a charge that made muscles shake. It hit Mailer's arm. The gun flew. It spun in the air like a bad coin, gleamed in the plaza lights, and hit the water with a sound like a choice being made. Silence, then a sound like rain. It was applause. It came like the beams that had fallen and turned to water and been harmless after all. Mailer sagged. He did not look at Mara. He looked at the floor where his name was not carved and realized it never would be. Take him, the guard captain said, voice full of something like relief and sorrow at once. They did not beat him. They took him by the elbows and walked him across the square, through the fountain, under names of people who had died to make governments like his impossible. He had made them possible again. Now the city would try again to make them impossible. Mara's legs shook. She leaned on Gesso. Kylie shone with tired light. We're not done, Click said gently. We never will be. Mara laughed once soft. I know. A small boy ran into the circle. Pi Q, he grabbed Mara around the waist. We didn't die, he said. Not today, she said. Today we live. The mountain hummed low. It had felt the way the crowd had held itself. It had learned something like trust. High above, the Union captain filed a report that was a little different than usual. It used the word remarkable. It used the word cooperative next to refugee. It did not use the word insurrection. The Hellion factor with the silver hand booked passage off-world with a bag of cash and a face that looked a little more like a person and a little less like a symbol. Vera sat on the fountain's edge with her shoes off and her feet in the cold water and cried for 5 minutes private. Then the node pinged. "Long-range hail," it said. "From who?" Myra asked. "Saul," the node said. "Earth, the message is simple." "What does it say?" Kali whispered. The node played it, a warm voice, low and careful. "This is the Sol Alliance convoy Dawnspring, 3 days out. We have food, we have doctors, we have teachers, we heard you say the words. We have one answer, all are welcome." Myra sat down hard, she laughed and cried at once. Jessa whooped, Kylie's light bloomed into a sunrise. The plaza roared. 3 days is a long time when you've just learned you can breathe. They used them well. They cleared glass from halls and strung lights. They turned the plaza into a festival and command post at once. They opened the old school and put teachers on the steps to sign up anyone who wanted to learn the mountain's long language or teach someone how to make bread. They drew lines on the map for new shelters and erased old lines that cut one neighborhood from another. They argued, they argued, about where to put the food depot, about who got to stand closest when the convoy arrived, about what to call the council, about what to do with Mailer. They decided on some things. They could not decide on others. They were messy. They were new. It was not a clean story. It was a human one. Mara kept working. She did not take a title, though someone offered her one that came with a room on the tower's 6th floor. She slept on a mat in the mountain. She fixed things. She listened. She let herself cry alone in the ladder shaft once, hard and ugly, when the smell of warm metal reminded her of a ship she had been on when she was 19 and a friend with hands like hers had died because a worker had tried to save a boss money. She wiped her face and went back to work. Kylie learned faster than anyone expected. She sits with a row of little ones and made their colors dance with hers and made a new chorus. She wrote a song called Door that was just 2 notes long, the one you sing when you ask if a place needs you, and the one a place sings when it says yes. Jessa kissed someone in a shadow and laughed louder the next day. Click took a job she named herself, Knife Listener. Vera wrote a letter to a mother she had not spoken to and put it in a box marked to be carried by Dawnspring North. Mailer's trial began in a room that smelled like old paper. It had a judge who wore no robe. It had a circle of witnesses who spoke and a bigger circle of people who nodded or shook heads. It had a day where nothing made sense and a day where everything did. At the end, the sentence was not death, it was work. It was a cell that was a tool shed. It was 10 years of fixing public things without pay and without cameras. It was hard and small. It was not revenge, it was repair. On the morning of the 3rd day, the sky was not violet. It was clean. The sun made the glass ridge shine like teeth. Children sat on the mountain and kicked their heels. Vendors sold little fried things for 1 coin. A clatterfolk band rolled and rang. Luminari gathered in a wide circle with their light turned low. The bird people shook their feathers and made thin whistles because they were excited and did not know where to put it. The Union captain sent a message. "We will observe, we will not interfere." The sentence had a strange shape, respect. The convoy came. First was a scout with a wide dish and a sharp nose. It cut the thin cloud like a blade. Behind it, 3 big ships with bellies full of crates and bunk beds and 100,000 small tools. Their names gleamed on their sides, Dawnspring, Gentle River, and Work Song. They moved slow, careful. They aimed for the landing flat at the base of the ridge. The mountain smoothed its face. The node hummed to tell them air density and wind shear. It had made itself a good host. Dawnspring settled, dust lifted, ropes fell like tails, gangways reached down like arms, the hatch opened. The first person out was not a soldier. She wore a jacket with patches and a scarf in a color that did not belong to any uniform. Her hair was brown. Her eyes were old with sleep and new with bright. She spoke into a little mic. "Kestrel," she said, and her voice carried clear. "We came because we heard your song. We heard it a long way away." She smiled because she could not help it. "All are welcome." Mara stepped forward with Kylie. She would remember later the feel of the ground. She would remember the way the air under the ship smelled like hot iron and salt. She would remember Kylie's hand sliding into hers, small and cool, like a glass that had just been filled with clear water. "We're messy," Mara said. "We're loud, we're scared, but we're here." "Us too," the woman said. They met halfway up the gangway. It was a small, normal thing, two people walking toward each other. The cameras caught it, of course. But what they could not catch was the sound in the plaza when human and alien, and more than alien and more than human all made at once. A sound like a held note finally resolving. Work began, unloading, cataloging. Big words, small work, boxes lifted, names written, thanks given. Dawn Spring's doctor touched a learned child's bruised knee and blew on it before she set the patch because she had once had a child and some habits followed you across light years. The mountain welcomed every strong back and every careful hand. The choir taught new ears the notes. The glass ridge gleamed like a memory that hurts less each time you take it out and show it to someone new. There were problems, of course there were. Some old powers sent letters full of threats. The Union captain stood on his bridge and wondered what it would cost him to say, "Welcome," out loud. Hellion put a price on Mara Cade's head that made poor men consider choices they would hate themselves for making. None of that stopped the things under their feet. 1 week later, a council formed that had 2 humans, 2 refugees, 1 luminary, 1 clatterfolk, 1 bird person, and 1 person whose species did not care to give a name. They argued about everything. They found a way. A month later, a school opened in the Sol door. Its first class had 3 Zapperian children, 5 learn, 8 human, 1 clatter child who insisted on sitting on a cushion because the floor was too hard for his songs, and a luminary teen who pulsed colors when they laughed. Kylie played them a 2-note song and watched them light when the door answered. 3 months later, the Union captain asked for a tour. He walked the mountain halls with empty hands and open eyes. He watched a luminary power a water plant and looked like his heart hurt in a good way. He shook Mara's hand. He said, "I have things to learn." He meant it. 6 months later, another convoy came, then another, then a small one that brought nothing but musicians and a crate of seeds. A year later, the Sol Alliance Council met on Kestrel because they wanted to sit somewhere that remembered storms and did not flinch. The banner above the door said all are welcome in more languages than the old sign had held. On a late day, very far from storms and early fear, Mara stood on the ridge and watched the sun slide down the glass until the whole world looked like it was made of molten gold. Gesso walked up and leaned beside her. "Remember when the storm sang and the pipes screamed and you had to pretend you weren't scared?" he asked. "I wasn't pretending," she said. "You're still scared?" he asked, gentle. "Yes," she said, "but the fear sits somewhere different now. It's further away." Kylie ran up behind them, a streak of light in twilight. She was taller now. Her light had new shades in it. She held a small device in her hand, a ring with a wire. "I made a thing," she said. "It listens for songs underground and lights a path if someone is lost." "What will you call it?" Mara asked. "Welcome," Kylie said, like it was a joke and like it was a prayer. They smiled because there are words you get to say again, and each time tastes new. On a picket ship 3 systems out, a Centauri captain watched a broadcast from Kestrel, watched the door open and the choir begin, and closed his eyes. He thought about orders and about the way beams could turn to rain and not hurt anyone, and he felt something shift, an old plate moving in his chest. On a Hellion office deck, a man with a silver hand sat alone in a room full of glass and did not touch any of it. He had a ticket out anywhere. He did not use it yet. He watched the screen and saw a mechanic walk across a plaza without a title and thought, not for the first time, that power can be a door with no handle, and maybe he would rather be someone who held a real door open for someone else. The mountain hummed. It had learned new songs. It had learned a word old and good and dangerous and soft. One more storm came that year. It was hard and long. Shutters slammed. Pipes sang. Children laughed a little and then got serious when they saw their parents' faces. The storm passed. The door opened and the smell of clean rain ran on the floor like a toy. Mara walked to the map with steady hands. She never forgot the way fear tasted. She also never forgot the other taste that followed it. Tea on a dented pot and Kylie's song and a word that sounded like a future. All are welcome. They printed it on doors. They wrote it on hearts. It was not a magic spell. It made work, not wishes. It was a hinge, not a wall. It made the Sol Alliance what it became, not an empire, not a council that ate itself, but a circle that could grow and shrink and still be a circle. On a quiet night, when the glass ridges were dark and the luminari were asleep, and the clatterfolk had rolled into their nests, and the bird people had tucked heads under wings, and the humans had finally put their hands down, Mara sat alone and held a cup of tea. She let herself think of the Convoy 9 man with eyes open in glass dust. She let herself think of the way the first rain of light had fallen. She let herself think of Mailer carrying a wrench now and fixing a rail without a camera and maybe, one day, finding out he could do a thing and not be seen, and it would still be real. Kylie walked in with bare feet that made no sound. She sat. She leaned. Light moved under her skin in slow, soft shapes. "Tell me a story," Kylie said. Mara smiled. "Once there was a door," she said. "It was very old. It listened to a new song. It opened." Kylie laughed. Outside, the wind moved the thin beads on the door and they clicked like rain. Far away, 100 other doors woke to the sound. The Sol Alliance rose, not like a rocket, like a city at dusk, lights coming on one by one until a shape exists where before there were only lonely points. Someone would come to try to shut the lights off. Of course, there are always someones. Mara washed her cup and set it to dry and went asleep. She dreamed of beams turning to rain. In her dream, when the rain hit her hand, it felt like a hand. And in the morning, when the sun lifted over the ridge and ran down the glass, it looked like a path.